It was supposed to be an ordinary winter morning in Cleveland. Commuters heading to work, a mother clearing snow off her car, a child strapped safely in the back seat. But within hours, two women would become victims of a violent spree that would shock the entire city and leave one fighting for her life. Now, Ronald Loftis, 47 years old, was no stranger to the criminal justice system. By the time of this case, prosecutors described him as a violent predator with an extensive criminal history, including prior convictions for assault, robbery, and weapon offenses. What makes this story even more chilling is that Loftis had only recently been released from prison in December 2025, just weeks before the attacks. This raises a haunting question that echoes throughout the case. How does someone with such a long history of violence end up back on the streets? The first attack at a bus stop robbery. The violence began early in the morning, around 7 a.m. on January 2. Loftis approached a 28-year-old woman waiting at a bus stop on Cleveland's west side. Without warning, he demanded her belongings, pistol whipped her, and stole her phone before fleeing. This was not just robbery. It was a calculated act of intimidation and brutality. But what no one knew at the time, this was only the beginning. The second attack, a mother and her child. Just hours later, the situation escalated into something far more horrifying. A 38-year-old mother was outside her home, brushing snow off her car. Inside the vehicle sat her 15-month-old child. Loftis approached again, armed. He threatened to kill her, forced her to the ground at gunpoint, and demanded her belongings. But this time, the victim fought back. And that's when everything changed. During the struggle, Loftis fired his weapon. One shot went into the air. Another struck the woman directly in the face. She collapsed, critically injured. Then, in a moment that stunned even seasoned prosecutors, Loftis grabbed the baby and threw the child into the snow before stealing the vehicle and fleeing the scene. The child miraculously survived. The mother also survived, but with life-altering trauma. Now, despite the chaos, law enforcement moved quickly. Using surveillance technology, including license plate recognition cameras, authorities tracked Loftis. Within 24 hours, he was arrested. This rapid response prevented what could have easily become an even longer and more dangerous crime spree. Now, at trial, prosecutors laid out a disturbing pattern. Loftis wasn't just a desperate criminal. He was convicted of multiple counts of aggravated robbery, felonious assault, weapons charges, and a grand theft of a motor vehicle. The prosecution emphasized his extensive criminal past, describing it as one of the longest they had ever seen. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a lifelong pattern. Now, in a powerful moment during sentencing, Loftis's defense attorney introduced a different perspective. They revealed that as a child, Loftis had witnessed extreme domestic violence, including his father's brutally assaulting his mother. The defense suggested that this trauma may have shaped the man he became. But the court faced a difficult question. Does a tragic past excuse violent actions? The judge's decision was clear. Ronald Loftis was sentenced to 51 to 56.5 years in prison, a sentence that effectively ensures he will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Prosecutor Michael O'Malley stated plainly, Loftis terrorized women and children. Now, this case highlights larger systematic issues. Repeat offenders committing violent crimes shortly after release. The challenge of predicting recidivism. The balance between rehabilitation and public safety. Cases like this are not isolated. Federal data shows that armed robbery and carjacking cases often involve repeat offenders, raising ongoing concerns about sentencing and parole systems. Now, beyond the headlines, this story is about a woman permanently scarred physically and emotionally, a child exposed to unimaginable danger, a community shaken by random violence. These are the stories that don't end when the courtroom doors close. In the end, Ronald Loftis is behind bars, but the real question remains: how many warning signs were missed before that winter morning turned into a nightmare?